Hey y'all, I'm Courtney.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is Bodice Tipplers,
the podcast where we read all the books we used to steal off our grandmother's nightstands.
And then we drink about it.
Hey y'all.
Hey y'all.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Courtney.
And we're here for a special episode of Bodice Tipplers.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, because we're here with some librarians from New York Public Library.
It is kind of like when you are at the, like on the AAA ball team and like some people from the major league show up and it's like, you're like, this feels very fancy.
That's because they broke their elbow. That's why you're seeing a Fireflies game who's got a big dude at it. No, when I asked you about this, if you wanted to do it, you're like, oh my God, that's the most famous library that didn't burn down.
Pretty much. That's pretty much what I said. So I am very excited about that. And I think we all need a little bit of excitement making.
Jesus fucking Christ. Okay.
And it's also, it's Valentine's month and, this is an exciting opportunity because usually during this month we're haranguing like the terrible romance novel list that, different magazines and newspapers put out. But now we have other professionals to talk about it. So it's exciting
people
stuff.
Who actually know romance, talking about romance. That sounds super exciting. So the New York Public Library is putting out their list of the best new romances, and they asked us if we would like to talk to some librarians, and we were like, hell yeah, we want to talk to some librarians. So why don't you ladies introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Grace. I'm a teen librarian at the St. George branch at the New York Public Library on Staten Island.
All right. And I'm Kate. I'm also a teen librarian at the Bloomingdale branch. No relation to Bloomingdale's or anywhere near, on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Also part of New York Public Library.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have y'all here. Again, it's very exciting for us.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about, so we are both librarians, but I have never come up with a list, which I do all the time, and then talk to media outlets about it. So
this is a first for us too.
This is also brand new.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do here?
How you pick the list?
Yeah. Tell us about how you come up with these best of lists.
Deathmatch. We have
Battle Royale.
Battle Royale. I mean, in voting, it could be like that. We're like, come on.
Sort of.
We have a committee of 10 librarians, basically reading as much as possible. Books have to be published for the list. They had to be published in 2024. They had to be books that could be acquired by the library. And they had to be actual romances. They needed that happily ever after. And it's amazing how many people will go like, oh, it's totally a romance. And you're looking at the book going like, no. They die, but they're in love. Like, yeah, but they're dead. Or the romance is like not even like plot A, B, C, or H. And it's like, so we've been doing this since 2021, and this year we had 50 books, and we also strive to have like a really diverse list as well. So it was sometimes like, oh, we have some really great selections, and then there are some books that didn't make it by a hair, and it's like, oh, it's killing me.
It's so sad. Yeah.
I was so glad to see Julianne Long on there twice, because sometimes I feel like I'm the only one who reads her, and then I run into somebody else and like, oh, that
was me.
So and also the Cat Sebastian. You should be.
Oh my God.
Oh, I love that one. So I don't do sports romance really, but I really, really enjoyed that one. So I was so glad to see that one on there. Would you like to say which of your what was your favorites on the list, each of you?
Oh God.
I have to say, I'm not a sports person. Grace is the sports person. This was like the year of baseball romance for me. And it's like, you should be so lucky. Like, oh my God, I love it so much. I just want to curl up with it. And it's one of those, I was following my boyfriend around the apartment, just reading passages to him. And he's like, thank you.
It's a New York book. I hadn't thought about that.
It's about baseball,
you guys, but yeah, it's like a super local book that's very much about both of her books that are like the mid-century newspaper books are very much about the place of New York in a lot of ways, aren't they?
And I cat sit in Greenwich Village, so it's like, oh my God. And then the other one is The Prospects by K.T. Hoffman, which is just such pure queer trans joy, and it's just like a warm hug of happiness and rainbows.
I had to put that on my list.
I know.
Oh, it's so good. And there's a dog, and nothing bad happens to the dog.
That is also a
I
requirement.
like it when they say that, and the T. Kingfisher always makes it really clear at the beginning of the book that the animal lives, and I thank you for that. That's important to me. Grace, what was your favorite one?
So towards the end of committee, I went through a weekend where I was just reading nothing but historicals, and if I liked it, I nominated it, and that's where the Julianne Long came in. And but my favorite was like Any Duke in a Storm by Amelie Howard. I've been waiting for a pirate romance for the whole 5 years I've been on this committee, and I finally got one. I'm so thrilled.
You know, I feel like pirate romances have kind of like waned a little bit, so it's like a good pirate romance.
Yeah,
make a
one of those
resurgence.
Julianne Longs is technically a pirate romance, but you don't see him pirating. He doesn't pirate on screen. I mean, like, I liked
He's
it,
an
but like,
off-screen
yeah, it's an off-screen pirate. It's on the DL with his pregnancy. Like that's not what I want to see. I want to see some swashes get buckled, right?
Always.
So, what was your favorite book that didn't make the list?
Oh my God, there's too many.
Yeah. I know you can't pick a favorite.
It's like picking your
Hold on, I'm
favorite
going on
dog
Goodreads.
or your favorite cat or your.
Hold on,
Most people would say child, but okay.
They're all least favorite.
Yeah, I only got one. It's the worst child in this house.
I think for me, At First Bite by Olivia Day, that one I was like really upset that it didn't make the list.
I love Olivia Day.
I hated that book so much. I love her. Like I adored like a spoiler alert and like those three, and I really didn't like that. And I think it's really interesting because when you look at Goodreads or at Storygraph, like a decision is so split on that
Very
one.
mixed, yeah.
We don't have a romance committee at my library, but our URSAT's romance committee we all hated that book. So why don't you tell me why you loved it?
I mean, I love Olivia Day. I loved the Grumpy Sunshine aspect. I'm like doubting everything I've ever read in my life.
No. I didn't.
Good job, Sarah.
Yeah, I know.
Way to go.
A reader's advisory librarian just made you feel bad about a book you liked. Wow.
I know. I loved also how she just really screwed with him when she was mad. Like the creepy murder puppets, like the murder dolls. I was all for that. I'm like, yes.
I just saw that this man could not be out on his own in public without a minder. He just seemed like somebody who would actually need like a public guardian to exist in the world. Like he just seemed like such an unrealistic person to be a functional adult and actually be the way he was described in the book. What about you, Grace? What was your favorite one that didn't make the cut?
You know, I was looking through our list, and all of the ones that I wanted to make the list made the list. So I was very lucky this year, but I don't have one that didn't.
Grace is like,
which is fortunate.
She's
for
like
me.
T Swift at the Grammys.
Yeah, she's got her.
It's like, hold on. Is there like some kind of I would, everything.
I'd be so pissed off if mine didn't make
I'd
the
have to be so competitive, and I'd have to be like, well, like
I have had years where like I've had a battle for a book and it didn't make the list, and I was just like, oh shucks. And then, but this year was really good because I had some backup with the historicals, which is nice.
And also, we did not have a bad experience with that one historical author who you traumatized us with several years ago.
Oh,
sorry.
Why don't you tell us about that?
Yes.
I don't want to say the author's name. I'm being nice. I was like, there's one, but we all are known to have at least nominated some real
stinkers
ones that you really think are great, and then everyone is like, this was the worst thing I've ever read in my life.
That's actually the reader's advisory experience. That's important. Like, as a professional, to be humbled.
So I like bodice rippers, like, and like that's all I've ever read. Like, look behind me. Like, this is my house.
I know, it's amazing. I was like, I've been like
I can't see a single title, and it's bothering me. Yeah.
I'm like, if we can get our hands on it.
I always look at bookshelves behind people to like really see like, okay, is this like your real bookshelf or is this your like CNN bookshelf? Like, is this?
No, this is my real bookshelf. It's like my brain, but like chaos. but I like old school romances, and sometimes they're not like the most friendly. And this one verged on the not so friendly. And they told me very loudly, and I immediately was like, okay, no, sorry.
Well, that's the
Love you guys.
professional dialogue. You advance, you know.
And I think it goes into though that, you know, obviously in book, you know, it's the same thing as like when you're reading, let's say it's not a really good connection, but you know, when we read a horror novel, I really don't want a ghost to come out and get me.
No.
You know, I think like it appeals to this, you know, whatever part of your brain that it wants to appeal to. And I think that they also make for really interesting. I've learned so much doing this podcast because for us who are, you know, Gen Xers, Xennials, it's been like, oh, this is why I'm like this.
But you know what's I keep saying this, and I don't think anybody's talking about it, so I'm going to talk about it right now, is that we grew up reading like Johanna Lindsey and like Catherine Coulter and all these women who were writing stories about what we would now call dark romance, right?
Yeah.
So for a while, so there was a time period where we were all like, oh, okay, that was kind of gross. We don't want to read books about that. So now that anybody can write anything they want to and publish it wherever they want to, suddenly everybody wants to read about being kidnapped by a mafioso. And I mean, that's the same thing. It is literally the same thing.
Right.
And it turns out that people want to express this fantasy that they have, like this, let's call it a dark fantasy. And that there is an appeal to that. And it's not just that people were too stupid to write books where consent was, you know, although, I mean, God, we've read some books, so y'all. That we found actually distasteful. But at the same time, there's obviously a market that people really want that kind of romance. Now, I mean, do they want it for healthy reasons? I couldn't tell you. You'd have to talk to somebody else.
I think it's fine. Here's the thing. Again, just like you read a pirate novel, nobody really wants to be like, you know, taken.
People love serial killer books because you're never going to get serial killed.
Like you hope.
You say, you know what? I'm going to get serial killed, and I'll be like, Sarah.
What? You going to answer the door to somebody you don't know? I'm not going to answer the phone to anybody I don't know. He's going to be dialing and dialing and dialing. And I'm gonna be like,
serial killer just knocks on the door. The door knocking serial killer. That's the. You know what? We just wrote a new one. Like the four of us are going to write the door knocker, and that's going to be the new one.
People knock on my door and I hide. It's like behind the couch. It's amazing.
Police order. No, that's how they get.
So, y'all have been both doing this for a number of years, evidently. Have you seen like changes in kind of trends isn't the right word, but I guess maybe because we've all seen changes in trends, but like in vibes. Has there been like a vibe shift, or like what? How have you seen things evolve as you talk about best new romance, whatever that means to people?
We've seen more unhinged ones.
Because I was going to talk about the rubber duck that you've put on your list. I didn't read it. Because I didn't know about it. That's the only
30 minutes of joy.
It's so much fun. Yeah.
Oh, we're definitely ready. Like,
a coworker told me about one who turns like there's a guy who turns into cheese. I haven't read the cheese one either, but I'm gonna read the rubber duck one. Don't worry. I was just kind of looking at the list today before we like read the podcast.
Writing the annotation, we were like, will we get sued by Sesame Street?
They don't own rubber duckies.
Like, so is the rubber ducky is that the hero? Yes.
Well, no, he's a shifter. Evidently, he turns.
Does he?
They live in Shifter Bay.
Okay, but is he like a pull float size rubber ducky or a little rubber ducky? I have questions.
He's like yay big.
Oh, so like
a bathtub rubber ducky.
Like a bathtub rubber ducky.
Well, at least it's not one of those little ones you put in the front of like a dashboard that people do.
The Jeep people.
Yeah, not like a Jeep rubber ducky, but maybe that'll be the sequel. No. Is that guy who just goes right?
Yeah. Squeakquel.
No, you didn't say that.
I loved it, but
I did. I'm sorry.
It's amazing. I think what's great about what's going on in romance now, probably more so than in any other genre, is there's something for everyone. And not just in terms of, and I don't want to equate it to this at all, but, you know, we're seeing so much more in LGBTQIA books and like just this, you know, and I think that is so wonderful, like, you know, that having these lists that have books for everyone on them. And that's one of the things that we have tried to do is, you know, we always do our gay Hanukkah book. And, you know, it's been that everybody should be able to have romance. Everybody should be able to read romance and find representation in romance. And so I think that that's something that maybe y'all could speak on. Some of your your favorite, like, more diverse books, you know.
Yeah. We also, speaking of like finding the perfect romance for someone, is we have like spice levels on them. So if you are a scaredy cat like me, you can go right for the mild. Or if you are into the like sex dungeons with multiple mirrors everywhere, we have that under scorching. So you can find the book according to your spice level that you're into that day, that year, that month. I'm looking at you, Grace.
And I think that's what's so great about the romance genre itself, is that everyone can find something that they identify with in a book. It's completely always changing to readers and what they enjoy. And that's part of our job, is finding the right book for people, which is always fun.
We have a lot of cryptid representation this year too that I'm thinking.
Yes, we do.
So the cryptids will have something as well.
Yes, I'm glad that the lizard man has a way to get
Loch Ness monster, a couple other guys. Yeah.
We also have a minotaur.
We love a minotaur.
The new Ruby Dixon. Sprayed edges.
Yeah.
Like, it's very cute, but I mean, like the object of the book of the new Ruby Dixon is very nice, isn't it? Like, they're really doing a lot with sprayed edges and, like, you know, little design.
It's a beautiful book.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Watching it, like, you know, again, as romance diversifies, that it's becoming more, you know, because again, romance for the longest time and still largely is this women's sphere, but, you know, men are reading it more now and becoming, you know, more involved in it and even writing some of it. So I find it really interesting that it's, I guess, like, not getting reputability, but because it's always
when men read a thing, it becomes important,
right? Like, but because it's been reputable, that like that lens is expanding. I guess
I went once on when Bookstore Romance Day was all on Zoom. I guess there's still a lot of stuff on Zoom, but like during the pandemic, there was a big one that was all on Zoom. And somebody from Barnes and Noble was in a session who said that their biggest selling romance store is one in Alaska, because these men come in off the oil fields, off the the fishing boats, like whatever. They come out of a hole in the damn ground. Okay, they crawl in to this Barnes and Noble, and they just want romance books. And I mean, like, they are not evidently picky. Like, they will take. It does not. I mean, like, these are people who are up for diversity. They were up for anything.
Connection. It's all about physical.
It's about relationships. Yeah, it's about, like, books about connecting with people. And they just take them by the sack, and they'll take anything you recommend. So the great thing is they're like, oh, I kind of like historicals. Well, you can give them everything. You can give them super diverse historicals, and they're not going to be like, I'm not sure if I want to read that or not. They're like, yes, I will try this Beverly Jenkins because I want to read about people in love. Like, how great is that? How
that's fantastic.
That's wonderful.
It makes me smile every time I think about that. Somebody on Blue Sky, and I'm gonna misquote them, and I'll have to, like, see if I can find it so I can, like, do an attribution in our show notes. Said that romance novels are a radical act because in a romance novel, a hetero romance novel, women's happiness is so important that the book is not over until a woman is happy.
Like, yes,
I love that.
Yes.
Holy shit. That's amazing.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, like, you know, and I always I joke with the people I work with who are also readers advisory librarians about how, like, I'm sorry, I read a lot of books. They're not about important stuff. They're about, like, who to spend the rest of your life with and how many or if any children to have. They're not important about like baseball. You know, I know baseball and war are, like, really important, but I read these trivial books about, like, you know, how we will fashion our lives and who we will spend them with.
Yeah.
You know, and how I should be treated as a person.
Well, I think it's too, these books always, even in the worst of the ones that we have read from 1970 something, the woman still has agency. She is still creating a world around her. She is still shaping things to her will. And, it's usually whoever coming around to her point of view, her point of, so it is like, they're really powerful in that kind of way. And so I think that's what makes them kind of timeless. That people, as long as people are writing and reading them, and I think it's really easy for people to oversimplify and say, oh, this, like the trashy read or whatever. Like, no, they're deeply important.
I don't have any guilty pleasures. I just have pleasures.
Exactly.
And some of them, I don't know. I haven't read the rubber duck one yet, but some of them might have a rubber duck in them.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
I recommend, and you are going to be laughing your butt off.
I would have actually read it before this podcast. Had I skimmed the list when they sent it to me. Sorry,
it's been a week.
I've spent a lot of time on the phone with senators who don't pick up.
Yes, so it's been that kind of. So we all need a rubber duck in our life, I think, especially right now. But,
absolutely. That's the very of the times.
Yes. So, what are some, like I said, like we, on the list, but what are some of your other favorite, maybe authors, like
all time greats?
Yeah. Who are your greatest of all time list?
Oh my God. My gateway to romance when I was in like high school, when I was a library page, was Catherine Coulter's Historicals.
Oh.
I was obsessed with them. And it was her. And then it was also Jennifer Cruzy was like my other gateway. Yeah. And I think she's writing again, and I'm like, yes, back. I need you.
I love her too. Bet Me was one of my favorites of her.
Oh my God, yeah. Bet Me, and
those two were just like, oh my God, I should have knocked them both over the head and like locked them in.
She
a
had
room,
amazing shoes. I loved her shoes. I still remember her shoes.
Good shoes, I gotta say.
Yeah, and Grace is looking at her bookcase right now.
Yeah, looking for some good candidates.
Because I've inherited this whole collection from my mother, and all of these have been stolen one by one as I was growing up from my mother. So yeah, she's been very supportive of me just stealing from her. Lisa Kleypas is the Wallflower series. It started me off on, it was one of my favorite series growing up. And then Julia Quinn, the Bridgertons.
Oh yeah.
Catherine Coulter, and Johanna Lindsey. I used to take them to school with me, in like a book cover, because I did go to Catholic school.
Yeah, you'd had it in your
You got a favorite Johanna Lindsey book? Because every time we do a Johanna Lindsey book, we have to re-record it, and somebody almost dies.
So we haven't
done one in a while.
It's kind of like the curse of Johanna Lindsey upon us.
I'm actually looking at all of her books right now. I'll show you the one I read first.
Yes.
When I was a child.
Because I wanted to do Tender as a Storm because of the cover. Because that man is naked.
Oh.
Love Me Forever.
Love Me Forever.
Well, maybe we'll do this.
Look at the inner cover.
Oh, step back.
I love that.
Yep.
And
that was my first one. And
she's so interesting.
It's the one I remember the most.
She's so interesting. And then again, the woman who did all of the art for her was so interesting because she had to basically this one woman do all of the art, and she did most of the art.
Start with an E. Yeah, I can't think of her name. Yeah.
But and like when she started out, she was much older when she started doing those covers, but she essentially, when she first started doing illustrations, she went under a male pen name so she could get advertisement work. And then she became the queen of these romance novel covers. And I think, again, the radicalization, like romance is radical, that you've got these people making their way and carving out these niches in really interesting ways. Okay. And so why don't you guys just briefly tell us where we can find this amazing list as we get ready and geared up for Valentine's Day?
You can go to our website at www.nypl.org/romance. And you can also visit any of our branches in the Bronx, Manhattan, and Staten Island, and in many cases through the library's free e-reader app. And it's really fun, and we're so proud of it.
Bodice Tipplers is part of the Frolic Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts.